In the struggle and upheaval of the world, he saw the labor of a Godhead's birth, a secret knowledge masked as ignorance, fate covered with an unseen necessity, the game of chance of an omnipotent will. We see here so many things. He capitalizes ignorance, of course. He capitalizes will, calling our attention to that. Even though fate begins the line, he capitalizes fate also. And he says about will, force of being in conscious action is will. In the Life Divine, he also says, the energy that creates the world can be nothing else than a will. And will is only consciousness applying itself to a work and a result. If anyone has the lexicon and would like to read more on the will, I would be very happy if you would like to continue. Let me know. We don't have to do it today, but it would be nice if we could do it and have different people do it. The same with the reading at times. I work with many, many people on daily reading of Savitri. And I am personally finding that their English is improving rapidly and vastly. Not only their English, but their comprehension and their vocabulary as well. So we're in this game of chance that fate is covering with an unseen necessity. And this game of chance is that of an omnipotent, all-powerful will. And Sri Aurobindo again says, what becomes desire in the ego is will in the spirit. And he says the real motive power of life of the soul, of the life of the soul, is will. Desire is only a deformation of will in the dominant bodily life and physical mind. The essential turn of the soul to possession and enjoyment of the world consists in a will to delight, and the enjoyment of the satisfaction of craving is only a vital and physical degradation of the will to delight. It is essential that we should distinguish between pure will and desire, between the inner will to delight and the outer lust and craving of the mind and body. This is from the synthesis of yoga. And there's one more from the synthesis I would like to quote to you. The leader of the journey, the captain of the march, the first and most ancient priest of our sacrifice is the will. This will is not the wish of the heart, or the demand or preference of the mind to which we often give the name. It is that inmost, dominant, and often veiled conscious force of our being, and of all being, tapas, shakti, shraddha, that sovereignly determines our orientation, and of which the intellect and the heart are more or less blind and automatic servants and instruments. So powerful to make this distinction, of course, between desire of mind and body, and the soul's will. And that sentence, the will is not the wish of the heart, or the demand or preference of the mind, to which we often give the name. It is that inmost, dominant, and often veiled conscious force of our being and of all being, tapas, shakti, shraddha, that sovereignly determines our orientation, and of which the intellect and the heart are more or less blind and automatic servants and instruments. Then we have the lines, a glory and a rapture and a charm. The all blissful sat unknown within the heart. Earth's pains were the ransom of its prisoned delight. We see here that Sri Aurobindo uses the hyphen all in so many, many words, dozens and dozens of words. The dictionary tells us that since 1600, the number of these combinations has been enormously extended, all hyphen having become a possible prefix, in poetry at least, to almost an adjective quality. So we have the all beautiful, we have all bliss, all conscient, all conscious, all knowing, all love. All love was hers, and it's hyphen to make one word in Sri Aurobindo's lexicon. So let me go back and give us the whole thing to date. Life kept no more a dull and meaningless shape. In the struggle and upheaval of the world, he saw the labor of a Godhead's birth, a secret knowledge masked as ignorance. And then he says, fate covered with an unseen necessity, the game of chance of an omnipotent will. And it is very important for us to follow punctuation. Now there's period or full stop after the word will. And then he begins again. A glory and a rapture and a charm. The all blissful, hyphenated, sat unknown within the heart. Earth's pains were the ransom of its prisoned delight. So if it's a prisoned delight, it's something that's held, a delight that's held in captive, as in a prison. We all know and we are aware to some extent that the all blissful does sit within our heart, and he is usually unknown. And this glory and this rapture and this charm also is within us. The rapture is something that is an ecstasy. And the pains of earth are the ransom of this delight that is held captive within us. He continues.
Narad?
Yes.
There is something, thoughts are coming for this hyphenated words which Sri Aurobindo is using so often, like all blissful.
Yes.
There is, in Sanskrit language, these are compositors, yes? And compositors can be the constructed words with several words. They are known in German language, for example. And we are using them in English without really hyphenating. But when it is hyphenated, it has several options of reading. And because of that, it gives a more holistic approach to the concept. Yeah, all blissful means it is of all, bliss, full of, to all, from all, by all, within all. So you can open these relations between all and blissful in many ways. And because of that, it is packed within the one composite word. The same
Yes,
as in Sanskrit.
this is very true. And I feel, and I have spoken with Amal Kiran about these things, Sri Aurobindo is creating a new word, actually. Even though in English we say, yes, there is a prefix, all hyphen blissful. But all blissful here is not to be broken up into two words, as you have just said. It is a complete word. It is a whole word. And it has a power that is far greater than all and blissful separately. Do you agree with that?
Right. I was analyzing grammatically. I am not.
Yes. Okay.
Grammatically, if you take any compositor, it's called Tat Purusha in Sanskrit, means that one member stands to the other member in certain syntactic relations. And relation of this all to blissful, grammatically speaking, not meaningfully yet,
Okay.
and we are arriving at meaning. What you said is exactly that, holistic view, that all can be blissful of all, blissful in all, and blissful by all. So you can open different cases.
Yes.
So cases of relations, that's what I'm adding at.
Very good.
And then if you see that compositor hides, and you can see every time a new relation, it is never kind of the same, and it is all, it's a full relation. That's why compositors are so preferable by Sri Aurobindo, and he does it all the time.
Yes. Very good.
It gives fullness of relations. It's a new vision of all blissful. What do we feel? How would you translate it for yourself? I mean, for your mind, all blissful. What does it really mean? I mean, grammatically, all blissful. So he is blissful in all beings, yes? Or all beings are him being blissful. So you see, you can open this meaning in many different ways, and they are not full opening. It's just only one part of it. So you have the whole set of relations which are implied within one word.
Very good. Agreed. For me, the all blissful is the divine, of course. The divine presence. We could say the mother. We could say Sri Aurobindo. We could say the Lord. We could attribute any synonyms to it. But Sri Aurobindo, as you know, has used the word bliss so many times in Savitri and in all of his writings, that the earth was created for bliss. So the all blissful, he makes one word here, and that word is another synonym for the divine presence, to me at least. And we continue. A glad communion tinged the passing hours. Now, the word tinge is often figuratively used, and it's here it's not a question of color or trace, but it could be something affected as in thought or feeling, a slight amount of something figuratively. So this communion tinges the passing hours it touches them slightly. The days were travelers on a distant road. So he calls the days travelers on a distant road, and the nights companions of his musing spirit. A heavenly impetus quickened all his breast. An impetus, of course, is an impelling force. It's an impulse. Quickened is an interesting word in English because it means it makes something alive, it vitalizes something, it even stimulates something, stirs something. And so a heavenly impetus quickened all his breast. The trudge of time changed to a splendid march. The divine dwarf towered to unconquered worlds. Now, we might do time again one day, but we've done it previously. But I'd like to get into the divine dwarf and then ask Vladimir to offer his understandings, but I have quite a few of them. I have one from Amal, who writes that the divine dwarf is the psychic being in its initial state. Nolini writes, it is the divine as Vamana, as someone doing austerities. Madhav Pandit tells me the allusion is to the Vamana avatar in Indian mythology. Vamana, the dwarf, Lilliputian in form, asks for a boon of 3 steps of land from the king. The king readily agrees. Suddenly the dwarf assumes a stupendous shape and occupies both the worlds of earth and heaven, and asks where he should place his 3rd step. The king is obliged to offer his head. The Titan yields to the divine in the form of Vamana. Here, the living divine person in Aswapati, finding earth too trifling, exceeds it and grows larger and larger, higher and higher, to encompass the unconquered worlds above. This is from Madhav's book of the Divine Mother. And then we have Purani, who in his excellent book that he presented to me when I was only 22 years old, Savitri, An Approach and a Study, writes, the dwarf here brings to our mind the Vamana, the divine dwarf, an incarnation of Vishnu, who measured the 3 worlds, the material, the vital, and the mental. Vedat here is as symbolic and large as usual in the approach and the study, in his 3 steps. In the Rig Veda, reference to this, which is also in the Puranas. Vladimir?
Yeah, totally. With the same ideas. Of course, there was a possibility. So he left one underground, so to say, subconscious world for the darker force to be and occupied. Sri Aurobindo speaks about it a bit differently in the human cycle, by the way. He says he mentions these 3 steps of Vishnu, of Vamana. And one first step is family, the second step is nation, and the 3rd step is human unity. And this is interesting from the point of view on the scale of time rather than on the scale of space.
Very true. So we'll conclude today with the last line. earth grew too narrow for his victory. So we see this tremendous progress of Aswapati, getting this view of things that most never have had. And next week we have a lot to cover in definitions and the lines of Savitri. Are there any questions?
I had one question, Naradji.
Yes.
This is with regards to the line, Earth's pain, where the ransom of its prisoned delight. So in the previous verse, Sri Aurobindo says, the all blissful sat unknown within the heart. So if the blissful is sitting unknown within the heart, it seems a little bit of an oxymoron that it should be prisoned.
Well, you see, it's the pains of earth that have created this prison. But they are also the ransom of this prison delight. The all blissful may, and indeed does, sit within the heart of all of us. But how many of us are aware of him? So we have to go through these pains of earth to realize him. And they are the ransom of this delight, which seems to be held captive in us.
I have a
Yes, please.
yes. You're continuing something. I just had a question.
It's all right. Please ask.
So I have this. In the record of yoga, we see certain small Sanskrit words given for different kind of spiritual experiences. When you see this yoga of the soul's release and you see a certain text, basically, all blissful sitting on the heart, there are certain Sanskrit. Do this correlate or do this, which I don't know how to frame this question. Probably the people, the kind of things which we have gone through record of yoga, they are very brief and they are very non-explanatory. They are very kind of crude, and you don't understand a lot. So, is it possible? Is it something we should do? Try to understand those words on the context of this yoga of the soul. So is this something which you advise us? Is this something good to do?
Well, it's a question that has many different aspects to it. First of all, for me, I have not read this book intentionally because it is Sri Aurobindo's own progress into his realization as the avatar. And it was never supposed to be published, I understand. Champaklal had it hidden in a closet, and it was found and brought out. And some people do read the record of yoga, but I don't. And for me, I contact the all blissful, the divine presence, the mother, by going within to my psychic being and trying to open there. I'm very well aware of the earth's pains, and I have gone through hundreds of them, literally, to find the release from this prison of the body, mind, and vital, to find that delight within the heart where Mother and Sri Aurobindo, or you may say the divine, resides. More than that, I can't say. Vladimir, perhaps?
There is something interesting here also, plus to what you say is, of course, the fundamental truth. But there is something to think of that every earth's pain, whatever pain we have here, is nothing but contradiction of the true delight within with that environment in which it appears. And there is a struggle between the bliss which is involved with the misalignment to this bliss of everything we are on the surface. And that creates pain. And that is the ransom, actually, for that involved delight. That is what is happening to us. And it is indicating where we have to pay our attention, where we have to really find the delight, because the delight is there, not the pain. Pain is just a distortion because of our darkened consciousness on the surface.
Exactly. Of course, now we have to remember that this is Sri Aurobindo as Ashwapati going through all of this and experiencing all of this. But if we look to the beginning, those first lines, he says life has kept no more a dull and meaningless shape. He is already aware of that. He sees the labor of a Godhead's birth in the struggle and upheaval of the world. He knows that there is a secret knowledge masked as ignorance. He also knows that fate is covered with an unseen necessity. It's covering with an unseen necessity this game of chance of an omnipotent, all-powerful will. And so we see that after that full stop, that period, he tells us that a glory and a rapture and a charm. What is happening there? Well, he sees the all blissful that is sitting unknown within our heart. And he also sees that these pains of earth that we have to bear and go through are going to be the ransom of this delight that is captive within us. And he sees that a glad communion has touched lightly the passing hours. He sees the days being travelers on a destined road. That road is destined. And he said, all who have come to him are going to eventually be transformed. You know the story of the people who died in the ashram? Mother would always see Sri Aurobindo's symbol on their head. And there was one lady who was very, very nasty, we could say. And she passes away, and Mother sees his symbol on her head. And Mother says to him, her too? And Sri Aurobindo says, yes, all of them. So I will end here and look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you so much. It's such an honor for me to be with all of you. Namaste.
Thank you.
Namaste.
Thank you, Narad.
Thank you, Narad. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.